Hello.
Hi there.
Things are a bit different this episode.
Yes, we've got a very different, very special and very important episode for you today. So it'll be slightly different. We are joined today by the wonderful Kat Owens, who is a disability campaigner who you will remember from our Activism extras.
Yeah, and Kat's going to be starting off with a little bit about her and her journey. I've said the word already, I'm sorry.
Yeah, what led her to become the incredible activist that she is today.
Yeah.
And how it came about that we all collaborated on this ADHD activism train, and with her at the helm. That's not a helm of a train, is it? But you know what I'm saying? With her taking the lead of our team and advising us and just being amazing campaigner. What we really want to do with this episode is to demystify the politics that surrounds ADHD, and in particular late ADHD diagnosis and the diagnosis process as it is right now.
Yeah, but when it comes to politics, I don't have a bloody clue. And having listened to Kat, I'm now starting to understand things a little bit better.
So we know that every time we've shared our experiences, a load of people have said that they relate and that they feel the same. So with Dawn feeling as she does, we know that there's going to be plenty of other people that feel the same way. Mm-hmm. So in trying to demystify politics, actually, what we've done is uncovered even more mystery. But we'll come back to that. Yeah. What's really important to know, we just have to give, I know we're full of disclaimers anyway, but we've got a couple more for you, because this is a potentially very triggering episode for some.
Yeah, so if any of you feel that undiagnosed ADHD has cost you the opportunity to become a parent, this episode might be a little bit triggering for you.
Yeah. So we've also got another disclaimer. Kat would like to clarify that although her psychosis was most easily explained by bipolar, it can happen at other times, such as when we are sleep deprived, under extreme stress, or on certain medications. Kat's assessor suspects that the symptoms she experienced were caused by a combination of these. If you think this might apply to you, it's important to get a second opinion and make any changes to medication slowly with appropriate medical supervision.
Yeah, so all of this will make sense when we dive in and speak to Kat. So
yeah, let's do it.
Let's do that.
ADHD as females, ADHD AF, ADHD as females, the podcast.
Hi, I'm Dawn.
Hi, I'm Laura, and we are ADHD AF. Seriously. We are two neurodivergent neighbours who moved to the same street at the same time, at the same age, with the same undiagnosed disability. What are the chances?
Since discovering the enormous impact ADHD has had on our lives and the horrifying numbers of missing undiagnosed females, it has become our mission to make some serious noise.
We want to use our voices to raise awareness, break the stigma, and share our experiences in the hope that they help others.
So join us for a chat, or as it's called up here in Aberdeen, a blether.
Trigger warning, we will be covering some really sensitive topics, so please do have a read of the description of each episode before listening.
It's important to note that we are not medical professionals. We're not therapists or coaches. We're not qualified to offer advice or support. What we will do is share our experiences alongside resources and information from professionals. We will talk over each other and we will go off topic and forget the point mid-sentence.
We are both assigned female at birth, which means that we can only speak from the experience of life as AFAB people. However, ADHD AF is an inclusive space. Whatever your gender, you are very welcome here.
Yes, you are.
ADHD as females, ADHD AF.
So we are joined for this very special episode by the wonderful Kat Owens, who is from our Activism extras. And this time we've got her for a whole episode and we are very, very excited about it.
I know. Welcome, Kat. It's usually a little blether that we have with you, but it's a big blether today. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. I'm a bit nervous, which is funny because I got to the point of being absolutely okay about the blethers.
And now we've changed it up again.
Yeah, I was going to say now it's a slightly different format. So Keeping me interested.
Sorry.
I know, just keeping you on your toes.
So we obviously have caught up with Kat a little bit about her backstory of how she became a disability activist. But what we really want to share is some of Kat's story that has led to her campaigning and helping us and the wonderful work that she's been doing in our community. So Kat, how did you come to suspect you had ADHD?
Well, it's a bit of a long story and a funny story, so I'll try and keep it short and sweet. So out of my little group of friends in Newcastle, we fondly call each other the Hags. We're reclaiming it.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, we're all neurodiverse in different ways. And I met them through a couple of people, and now I know 10, 15 people, and we're all neurodiverse. I had a diagnosis of bipolar about 17 years ago. Like, I've had depression pretty much since I was about 9, but I think my hormones kicked in when I was really young.
Yeah.
So I think like now I'm finding out a bit about how hormones relate to ADHD. It's starting to make a bit more sense.
Yes.
So a lot happened in my teenage years, including having bulimia when I was about 14. And, you know, my family just didn't understand that.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it to a large degree because I was very overweight because I had asthma and I was on a lot of steroids and in and out of hospital and all of that. And I realise now that a lot of it was about control, but now I found out that disordered eating is part of ADHD. That to me would have been a massive warning sign. I mean, I'm going off tangent already, but surely paediatricians should think, well, all these things have happened. Let's just screen for ADHD.
Well, this is it. That's the same as me, because I've battled bulimia from the same age, and that's the thing that rings in my ears. Is like with the 6 screening questions would have saved me 24 years, basically.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, exactly. And although I'm quite nerdy and I love learning things, school was not happy for me. You know, I would spend a lot of the time not wanting to be there, and then when I wasn't there, I'd be able to relax and feel better. And anyway, I remember my mum being asked if I was school avoidant, and her being a teacher, she was especially like, absolutely not, she's just not very well. But now I realise actually all of my physical health stuff is connected to my mental health, which will have been connected to my ADHD as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we're going through sort of senior school into 6th form. I was sort of encouraged very vigorously to do academic things when I actually really wanted to be a chef and to cook.
Right.
So like, I know we're trying not to do the looking back and wondering what could have been, but I do wonder if I'd have been diagnosed then, would I have been able to use that information about how my brain worked to say, actually, if I'm doing something I love that much, I'll be better. I'll be okay then.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's impossible to not do the looking back thing. It is part of the process. It has to happen, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And so people that have listened to the little bonus blathers that we've had might know that I eventually trained to be a chef when I was about 35.
Yeah.
But and like I've never really been able to do that much with it. But I loved it.
Yeah.
Shout out to college. We love you. It was that, they were great. And they supported me so much then. But by that time, I had had several different careers, as often happens with people with ADHD. But from university, where I did history, I went on and I was on a graduate scheme at Scope, which is one of the biggest disability charities, or it was then.
Mm-hmm.
And I got very lucky because I already was doing disability campaigning at university. I was advising them on access issues because I'd had to take time out at university, and I was a wheelchair user at the time because I have a condition that means I dislocate regularly, which I now know is connected to ADHD.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the dots joining together.
Yeah, indeed. So going back to the campaigning, I was starting at Scope doing disability campaigning and knowing that this is something that could get me out of bed in the morning when I was in a huge amount of pain.
Yeah.
And for me, knowing that I can help someone else with something that I found really hard, it will get me through anything.
Yes.
And I got the feeling when I first started listening to the podcast, these are people that get it.
Yeah.
You know, I knew from the very first episode that I listened to that you were walking that walk too.
Yeah.
And I've still not answered the question, but I'm almost
Fine, I'm loving it. Carry on.
all around the houses.
We're here for it.
Yeah.
But basically, I knew by that point that I probably had ADHD. And I knew that from the hags. We'd had quite a lot of heated discussions about, were the traits that I'd been told for 17 years were bipolar, were they actually ADHD traits? Because I have very marked highs and lows in my mood. I've been on every single medication that you can have for bipolar. And interestingly, none of them have really worked.
Yeah.
And so I had to see a psychiatrist every 3 or 6 months for years. So probably for about the past 12, 15 years, it's been pretty much my whole life, just surviving.
Yeah.
And I have a lovely life. I'm happy. I've got a gorgeous husband and wonderful friends and, you know, lovely dog and great family. It's like I've got a lot going for me, but also my world is very, very small.
Mm-hmm.
And it's had to be small because that's all I could cope with.
Yeah.
But my problem is my ideas are big.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I'm at my absolute lowest, I have these huge ideas. The energy and kind of drive, it has to go somewhere. And that's something that has never totally gone along with the bipolar.
Yeah.
You can get this thing called grandiosity. So an example of that would be that maybe you're not keen on writing, but you would decide that you were going to write a best-selling novel and it was going to happen.
I was just about to say, or that two girls in a box room in Aberdeen could decide they could change the whole diagnosis process of ADHD.
Yeah. That pretty much fits the bill.
Yeah.
You know, people...
I was going to write a book. I can't even write a bloody sentence.
Hey, do you know what? Maybe the three of us could write a book. That would be amazing.
I've been writing a book for ages, but I got bored of it.
Did you? Maybe we can contribute a bit to your book or something.
Yeah, it's about Ibiza, so.
Oh no, I've got nothing. No, I've got nothing on that. Anyway, back to the question.
Yes, sorry, we still haven't got there, have we?
No, I haven't. Sorry. So with my friends talking about my my bipolar, and is that what you've got? Are you sure that's what you've got? And me getting quite defensive because in the past I've had absolute terrifying experiences with psychosis, and just thinking about some of the chats I've had to have with my friends about it, who didn't know me at that point, it makes me quite emotional because it's things like sort of, if you're feeling a bit wobbly, don't listen to the next bit. Voice is telling me that I had to kill myself. And it always happened if I was in a basement or in a lift. So to the point where I couldn't go in a basement or I couldn't go in a lift. And I was living in a basement flat at that time.
Oh, God.
So it was like tough. And I really was struggling to keep a job, and it was really, really awful time. And eventually I had to just stop, and I had to say, no, I'm broken. I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to have to look after myself a bit better. And my mum and dad were amazing.
That's wonderful.
They basically just I lived in this tiny little flat in London, and they basically just, one of them was there all the time on the sofa bed.
Oh.
So they were great. And after a few years, they definitely confirmed that they thought it was bipolar. And I started the whole cycle of all the different meds. Sometimes they'd help, sometimes they wouldn't help. But for about 5 years, I was on antipsychotics, and I just wasn't me. I was a zombie.
Yeah.
And I know I've talked to people in your community, the Discord community, about different meds, and they are the worst. They're awful. And it made me put on about 4 stone in 3 weeks.
Bloody hell.
Wow.
Yeah. And having had issues with my eating, I did not cope with that.
No.
very
I'm
well.
not
No.
surprised.
Yeah.
Didn't
And
need
I've
that.
never managed to lose it. You know, and I go to the gym a couple of times a week. I eat some of the most healthy diet that you could ever imagine, and I've just never been able to lose it.
Yeah.
So, frankly, that pisses me off quite a lot. It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
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 But yeah. Anyway, bipolar would pretty much not ruin my life, but it had dictated to me what I could do and took my confidence. And yeah, it was just a bit shit, really. And eventually, I stopped trying to be a campaigner, and I had previously trained to teach, but couldn't hold down a teaching job because, heaven forbid, you have to be on time, you have to start your lessons on time, you have to end your lessons on time. So I got absolutely amazing feedback for everything about my teaching apart from my timekeeping.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but that's a no-no.
Yeah.
So that didn't work, and it was very, very stressful. But I realised, although I was finding being a teacher just a bit too much, I could specialise in supporting people with special educational needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so that brought together my disability campaigning and my love of being around children with additional needs, because I now realise just how much I got them, that other people couldn't get them on the same level, that weren't neurodiverse themselves.
Yeah.
And I was telling you just when we were having a chat the other day that I'm going to be starting some forest school volunteering and training, and that is going to be with young people with special needs. And I was so excited about that.
Yeah.
We can see this,
Yeah.
this smile on your face. You beam up.
I know.
I can see that.
I think, you know, we've talked quite a bit about you have to find the joy in life, don't you? And like, I've always had this saying about, even on the worst days, you have to find your micro joys.
Yes.
So it can be things like a really, really good cup of tea.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you see some birds on the bird feeder outside. But if they're micro joys, then being outside in a wood with kids with additional needs is just like a mega joy.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's fantastic.
But anyway, still not got to the question.
No, this has been an incredible story. It's been really wonderful to listen to.
Yeah, it's very me. So anyway, back to the conversations with my friends. It got quite heated, to be perfectly honest. And I ended up getting really upset and being like, well, you know, you can think that if you want, but it is bipolar. And I know because it was psychosis and it was horrendous and blah, blah, blah. Fast forward about 3 months, there's me saying to my best mate, I think they might have been right. I think it is ADHD.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, I know you can have bipolar and ADHD. In fact, it's quite common.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had been on the ADHD waiting list for a while, even when I was having the conversation about bipolar or ADHD. Or I thought I was on the waiting list, but I was having issues with my GP, so swapped to a new GP who is fantastic. And they were meant to be doing things like helping me change my name with Psychiatry UK, who I was supposedly on the waiting list for, because I got married in between.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get a reply from them. So they said, don't worry, we'll do it. And I got this odd text message saying, please ring us, it's urgent. And I had just had a smear test. So I was just like, no, it's all smear.
No.
You don't want to get a text from your doctors, do you?
No.
So I got in touch with them and they were like, we're really sorry, but you're not on the waiting list.
Oh.
I haven't cried like that in years. I was devastated.
How long had you been on it? Or how long had you thought you'd been on it?
My initial visit to the doctor, my original doctor, had been 2 years before. And I found out after a while that I wasn't on the waiting list, that I hadn't been referred, even though I'd filled in all the paperwork. So I'd gone back to that doctor's and they'd said, right, it's going to be a 9-month wait approximately from the time. And I was like, right, okay. And then when I moved doctors, it was just over 9 months. And then they said I wasn't on the waiting list. So, yeah. And I'm very lucky that they're great. And I had a chat with them, and they said, well, look, what do you want to do about it? And they referred me through Right to Choose. I'd done quite a bit of research by this point, as we do. And I said I wanted to go to ADHD 360.
Yes.
And my husband had also said, I can't see you like this. I think we need to find a way to pay to get you seen. I could have waited through Right to Choose originally, but when it got to that point, I couldn't. I didn't have it in me anymore.
Yeah.
So I went to ADHD 360. I have a specialist there who is very experienced with people with bipolar, and she said, I really, really think that you don't have it after my assessment. And
17 years you've been diagnosed with bipolar.
And it ruled my life.
Yeah.
And I had to do things.
My throat hurt.
Yeah.
I had to do things like sign a form saying I wouldn't have children because of the medication that I was on. I'd always wanted to be a mum. I think it's one reason why I like working with kids so much. That was awful. And I got to the point, I'm 44 now, I'd got to the point when I was about 37 of realising it probably was never going to happen anyway. But still having to sign it, it's like a dagger through your heart. It's awful.
Yeah.
God, you've got us.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't expecting to see you
I
cry.
know. I'm sorry that you've had to go through that and get to this point in your life, and 17 years of thinking that this is the way things are to discover that it's completely different. It's just
makes me really fucking angry.
Yeah, me too. And what makes me even more angry is that when I went back and I wasn't allowed to talk directly to my old psychiatrist. Yeah, and I couldn't get directly in touch with her, but I was lucky enough to have a therapist that did on my behalf. Wow. And I got the feedback, this was just before Christmas, that I was diagnosed right at the end of November last year, and I got a call on the day where I was due to go for the food shopping just before Christmas. So just got back from the supermarket and was totally wrecked with sensory overload. And my therapist called and said, we don't think that you should start the meds because with your bipolar diagnosis, it's highly likely if you start any medication that you will become psychotic and that you will flip right into a very high mood, and that will be dangerous. And I was in floods of tears. Yeah. And I said, look, I'm going to have a think about it. And I eventually got back in touch with my specialist at ADHD 360, and we talked it through, and she said, well, look, it's up to you. I'm not suggesting that you have any of the meds that typically cause any changes to your mood. So things like the Lisdex and that kind of thing, that has more of an impact on serotonin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And she said you can try, if you want, the short-acting methylphenidate. Yeah. That's the only thing you would be able to try. And the logic of it is it doesn't interact with the antidepressants that you're on, because it's really unusual to have bipolar and be on antidepressants, but that's me. And she said, if you try this, you will know within a couple of hours whether you were going to have a reaction to it or not. You'd need to make sure that you were safe, that you have a good kind of support system around you, which I do. I'm very lucky. And she said, you need your GPs, okay, but if you can get that, you sound like you're very sensible and you can give it a go.
Yeah.
And I did, and it was like someone turned the volume down in my head.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And I've had a few issues with side effects since then, and had to go up a bit, down a bit, along a bit, and hopefully we'll be able to go up a bit again. But the next step is going to be to completely come off the antidepressants. And I've been on a form of antidepressants since I was 17.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm not looking forward to that, but I am in a way.
Yeah.
But it's going to be really, really big.
It's messy and it's challenging, but it's also
you've had that crutch there your whole life, and now you're taking it away and seeing if you can walk on your own, and that's going to be scary, but it's also exciting. Yeah,
and like my specialist at ADHD 360 said, I know you've tried to come off it before and it's been horrendous, but you haven't had your ADHD symptoms under control.
Yes.
And if you can get them enough under control with the methylphenidate, then once you're off the antidepressants, you've got all the other meds that you can have a look at.
Yeah.
Because I'm on a mood stabilizer as well.
Right.
And she said, if that works, you can then be reassessed for bipolar.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So very, very long story, but
no, not at all. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Yeah, it's an incredible story, and such an important one as well. And we've spoken to people like over through the community, and people have messaged us through social media, and a lot of people saying that they've been misdiagnosed with bipolar. So it's a really interesting area to look at. And
I just think in terms of the fact that you were already an activist, and now with this understanding, this awareness, and having suffered what you have, and having had ADHD cost you what it has, it really explains the fuel for this fight, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like a good rumble, and I think we need one.
Yeah,
we do need one. It's time for change.
Yeah.
And what I've seen in your community in particular is, once people get the small things, and there are small things that we can do, they're on it. They don't need asking twice.
And do you know what? I think with that in mind, we have something else that we would like you to get behind. It's a call to action. We've got 3 days to have our voices heard and make a difference with the IPSO.
And so if there's any of you out there that are like me and didn't know who the IPSO are, Kat?
So the IPSO is the Independent Press Complaints Organisation. So they're the people that you might have complained to after the recent articles that have been out there. And they basically are a panel that includes editors that have something called the Editor's Code of Practice. And at the moment, they're saying that they want people to submit a bit of feedback in order for them to review the code of practice. At least that's what we've heard from certain people.
Yes. So there's a lot of people doing different things, voicing different things online, one of which is Rachel Charlton Daly, who has been campaigning to get people to write into the IPSO. The legendary journalist Rachel Daly has written a template letter, and she's been campaigning this for bloody ages.
She has.
So it's only right that we send you all her way. So similar to the template letter that Kat wrote for us to have our say in the parliamentary debate, get our MPs to go and attend. Rachel's already done this for the IPSO Editor's Code Review, and we would like you to get on board with it. So here's a little snippet from it, just so you can hear what it's all about. Currently, the clause prohibits discrimination against an individual. However, it does not stop discrimination against groups of people who fall under protected characteristics, such as disability, gender, sexuality, race, or religion.
Yeah.
So obviously, this is hugely important.
Massive.
And if these groups could be protected, then it means that we won't have to suffer attacks in the media like the ADHD ableist attacks we've seen of late.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important that we all hop on this right now. So we've already written to them. The link to this will be in our bio. It will also be in the blurb of this episode, and you can get on that, download Rachel's template letter, and send it off, because we've got 3 days to get these in, and we figured what better time to push it than most ADHDers' favourite time to spring it into action, the last minute.
Yeah, do it now.
So, the last minute. So if you could actually even just press pause, and it is, a call to action, because we've got 3 days to have our say. And we already know, as a result of the surveys that were put into the parliamentary debate, that we can make a dent in it. We were 10% of the surveys submitted. So we do have a power in numbers here. Your voice does matter, and together we can be heard. So please do.
So press pause, do it now.
Do it now.
We're not going to talk for the rest of this episode until you've done it. All right, we can't do that. But
Okay.
now that you've done it and you're back.
Welcome and well done. Thank you very much. So yes, with regards to the Anti-Ableist ADHD Media Coalition that we have formed, thank you to everybody with your support with that. As we said, we had so many people wanting to get involved. We've just had to write listeners and followers, because otherwise it would be like a 20-page document.
Yeah.
But what is really interesting to note, and again, I don't want to sound like a massive bell end, but since we put it out there, the online system, there hasn't been that barrage of negative press that we were knee deep in before we joined forces and before we started making noise. So we don't know if that's linked to us doing it, or if it's linked to the fact that no other celebrities have come forward and said that they've got ADHD, and we might be in for it again in 5 minutes. We don't know. But what we do feel is that the way that we did it, in really spelling it out, the responsibility that's held, the legalities and the facts, they're kind of, you can't really argue with that, right?
You can't. It's simple terms, and it makes sense.
It makes sense. So it's it's okay to not understand, but here, let us help you. And if you go against that, then you're actively going against all of those things that make perfect sense. So we hope that it's helped some way. We've also written to the Board of Independent Press Complaints Organisation to provide feedback on their editor's code of practice. So that's gone out from us also.
Which is exactly what we were just speaking about,
exactly.
the letter, which you guys have just done as well.
Is there anything else you want to add to that, Kat?
I would just sort of say to people how important it is that they join us in doing that, because at the moment the code only protects an individual, not communities of people that have got what we call specific characteristics. So, for example, if they were going to write an article about ADHD that was directly mentioning you guys, you would be protected, but anybody that felt the impact of it from your community who weren't specifically mentioned in the article, they wouldn't be covered. So I know some of the activists in the community have said, they've had a reply, but the reply is basically, we can't help you because you're not the individual that this is concerned about, and because it's opinion pieces rather than reporting. So in the submission that you've made, it's important because the template letter also suggests that best practice becomes part of the code. So it will be about individuals, it should be about a group, and this is how you can do it.
Exactly that.
So
thank you for already doing that.
And if you haven't, then we're coming for you. Get it done.
3 days.
We know who you are.
No, we don't.
We don't, but we might.
We can figure it out.
So just to recap on the House of Commons surveys that many of you sent off to Westminster for the debate, this was obviously the very first activism action that we called on you to take part in. So thank you to everybody that did. That was absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Do we know any more about what happened to the information shared by our community, Kat?
Well, we think that some MPs used statistics provided by the House of Commons Library in the debate, but most of the information used seemed to be from activists or charities. So you might be thinking, well, what's happened to our information? Has that just disappeared now? Well, no, it hasn't. So the information hasn't disappeared, but there hasn't been a lot of fanfare about it. a report's been put out, but what's quite interesting is a lot of information's been missed out of the report. And so I've been having a look at why. Why do you think that information might have been left out of a report?
To cover shit up. To not have to face it.
Yeah.
Not have to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what I think happened. Like, we can't say for sure. You can never say for sure. But I'm really number blind, and I generally try not to think about numbers as much as I can. But for me, statistics are about people, and they can make change happen. So I think I must get like that little dopamine hit from knowing it's worth trying to figure the numbers out.
Yeah.
Because it's about people.
Yeah.
So anyway, when the report came out, I was having a look at it, and kind of you can't see at the beginning that numbers are left out. But then when you start to look at the percentages, it doesn't add up to 100. So you're kind of like, that's a bit strange. There's a very, very famous saying about statistics, if you're a statistics person, which I don't know how many of our followers would be, or your followers
I'm
anyway.
saying that.
Yeah. So this saying is lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Mhm.
So
what?
Yeah.
But do you mean that the statistics are lies?
well, not in most cases, but you do need to think about who benefits when statistics are used to tell a story, because you can make your statistics say anything you want, depending on how you report on it.
Of course.
So you can make a case for or against something. I have put together a few infographics that I think you're going to share at some point.
Yes.
About what we found out from the report. So one of the things is that only 3 in 10 people who replied were assessed by the NHS. So out of everybody, 5 in 10 people said that they had to pay.
Wow.
So at least half of us had to pay. But it's important to think about what the motivation was for people filling in the survey. So obviously you're only going to fill in the survey if you want it to count towards the debate.
Yeah.
You are motivated to share your experience. And I think a lot of us that have had to end up paying for it, like me,
Yeah.
you want to say it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's something that we need to think of. But then the report didn't say what 2 in 10 people did. So it's kind of like, well, what's that about?
Yeah.
There might be nothing sinister behind that one. But if we look down at barriers that people experienced, so some of the questions were quite difficult to follow.
They were tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know I found it tricky to follow them, and I was really, really trying to concentrate on it. And it did make me think, were they trying to catch us out?
Yeah, by making it complicated.
Yeah.
It was things like, do you think that this is good enough or this is not good enough? And then it was like a double negative.
Yeah.
Didn't make sense. So it was apparently 8 in 10 people thought that the waiting times were not acceptable.
Yes.
So 8 in 10 people thought it was not acceptable. But that makes me think, well, do 2 in 10 people, do they think it's acceptable?
Yeah.
Or were they just caught out by the wording?
Exactly.
Indeed. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, you're totally on it. It's like the statistics tell you one thing, but then you've got to ask a question about what do they not tell you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the barriers here, so there were 4 categories. The GP said it was not the best course of action. That's funnily worded to me. There was no local service, unexplained, or other. I mean, if I was writing a survey, I would make it very clear about, well, the barriers are the waiting times are too long, or my GP doesn't take it seriously, or, it would be quite straightforward.
Yeah.
So actually, when it comes to looking at the barriers, most people, so nearly half of the responses, were other. And they included a couple of the examples as not being taken seriously, and long waiting times, which we would have put in anyway if we were going to have a survey, wouldn't we? And then nearly 30% of people said that their GP said it wasn't the best course of action. But we actually know anecdotally that probably most of those people were either misdiagnosed or that was a polite way of saying, my GP didn't take me seriously.
Yeah.
So, you've actually got, you can look at statistics in different ways.
Yeah.
Also, things like there being no local service. So out of every 10 people, 2 of those people had been told there was no local service by their GP.
Yeah.
But the GP wasn't aware, or it wasn't mentioned in the report, but this suggests that the GP wasn't aware of all the alternatives that there are.
Yeah.
So when you're looking through the statistics and you start to unpick it, you start to realise that there's a lot not being said and a lot that isn't explained. And actually, when you look at them alongside what was said in the debate, you start to get quite a clear picture of what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm going to just look at one more.
Yeah.
Before your eyes glaze over, hopefully.
No, not at all.
Actually, I'm going to sneak 2 in because they're both about waiting lists. Sorry.
No, great.
So one of them is about the NHS waiting lists. And I've put a subheading in of the story so far because they present the waiting list to try and make you think that's how long the wait is.
Yes.
But
well, we all know that that's not true, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is how long the people who have answered the survey, how long they have been on the waiting list.
Yes.
Which is quite different than how long was the total wait.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've got like quite a big proportion, 1 to 6 months. You've got like 27% of people, but that's only so far.
Yeah.
And then you've got 6 months to a year, about the same. 1 to 2 years, about the same. 2 to 3 years, you're then up to 10% for that.
Yeah.
But they've missed out 13%, which is like at least 1 out of every 10 answers they've missed out.
Yeah.
And what do you think that is most likely to be?
Yeah.
The
higher number.
The longest wait. Yeah.
The longest wait. So 13%, so over 1 in every 10 answers is going to be above 3 years waiting so far.
Yeah.
Not in total.
Yeah.
So they've missed that out and they don't explain why. And then
Dodgy motherfuckers.
Our dodgy mother.
Yeah. I know. And no one, like, I sound like I'm being big-headed now, and I'm really not when maybe on some things, but not statistics. And when I was looking at this, no one else has picked up on this, which I find really odd.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other thing that misses out even more responses is the gap between NHS referral and the diagnosis.
Yeah.
So that would be total wait.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got, again, sort of 30%, 6 months to a year. So this will have been before the survey. These are going to be the people that have a historic diagnosis.
Yeah.
So they're not waiting now. So they could have been diagnosed when they were a kid, and it could have been under a year.
Yeah.
So even though it's presented as something that is like, that's good news, we don't have the kind of background of when that diagnosis was.
Yeah.
So it's like quite evenly split between 6 months to a year, 1 to 2 years, and then a smaller amount, 2 to 3 years. And then the biggest amount is missed out. What do you think that might be? Over 3 years.
It's appalling. It's really, really shocking, isn't it? But
it's just like bastards.
But it's like so blatant as well. It's like hidden in plain sight. It's like, well, we put this out here. No one's even going to look, are they?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh my God.
We're looking, we're watching, we see it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kat.
Kat sees it. I can't see numbers at all, but Kat spotted it.
Well, I mean, I've spotted what's not there.
Yeah.
So, it's not that I can see them. Maybe I can't see them. Anyway, I mean, basically, where I got to with that is, what do you want your community to do next? What do you think we can do as activists? can we hold the government to account? Is that something that we want to think about?
I feel like with such a blatant, such, I can't even find the words because I'm like spitting feathers about it.
I just want to call them out on it.
Well, this is what I mean. Can we not say why are there missing numbers?
Yeah.
I mean, we could, but House of Commons Library technically are non-biased because although they're paid by the government, they're supposed to be apolitical. They're supposed to not be supporting any party. However,
supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like if I was working for a big charity, I wouldn't be allowed to say this, but that is highly suspect, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the best thing that we can possibly do is we look at what was said in the debate, which like we talked about in a bonus letter, but basically, to summarise, the government said they had committed to looking at a waiting time standard.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means that we don't have a current standard waiting time that we can take into account to. So that's something we need to work on. And the government also said they were going to look at developing a national waiting time dashboard. And so I think we need to think about how that might work, because there's no information out there about how it might work. No funding was pledged in the budget, and
I was about to say that there's no funding mention. There's no plans to improve the assessment process. Nothing has been referenced. It's just we are committed to looking at it, which is just bullshit language, isn't it? It doesn't mean you have to do anything. You haven't committed to anything.
It is. So, I mean, I think as far as I'm concerned, we need to, as a community, to make sure we're all registered to vote. By-elections in May, local elections, we can use that to send a message to the government.
Yes.
You will need to be registered to vote with a recognised photo ID. If that's something you don't have, if you go on my Instagram at Canny Campaigns, I've got a link on there that will take you to get a registered, I think it's called a voter's ID certificate or something like that, because you need that. Because I think the more of us we can get voting, and the more that we're saying to our MPs, this is not good enough, things need to change, the better. Because we know that some sort of reforms are trying to be announced at the moment, but they're saying nothing will happen until the next general election. The general election has to be within the next couple of years. They won't, probably the government won't call an early one because they're having a really, really tough time at the moment, as we know. But it's going to come at some point in the next few years, and we need to be ready.
Yes, we do.
That's what I think.
Yes, we do. Well,
amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for all of that.
You're welcome.
I mean, I'm sure we could go on,
Always.
but we'll come back next time with a lot more.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. You know, I hate the word journey.
Yeah.
but your experience and the motivation behind all of this. You know, we were sat here in tears because we get it. We understand. And anybody likely listening to this will understand and will have experienced similar. So this is how we stop this from happening. This is how we make things better for future generations. It is in our hands. We do have the power if we use our voices and unite. And so that is why we will continue to do so.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening. And thank you for doing that template letter, which if you haven't done, you can do right now.
Please, please, please. It really can make a difference.
Yes. And
Yeah. And I know politics can be scary. Like, it petrifies me because I just don't know who to trust and what to listen to. And it's big scaries. But I want to thank Kat for helping me understand it a lot more and really see the importance of what we're doing.
But because this is it, because it affects us all. So it's not like it's a separate thing. It's not a secret club that is outside of us, that we're not, knowing or privileged enough to be able to be let into the club. This is about us. And as Kat shared with us that brilliant quote before from I can't remember who it's from. Was it from the suffragettes? Nothing about us without us.
Yeah.
Who said that?
Yeah, it's the disability community, really.
Yeah.
It's our club. politics should be our club, because if if you're someone that breathes, someone that needs to drink water, then you're involved in politics, because politics is about you. It doesn't have to be about something special, because we all need to know more about it. It needs to be less mystical. And I think what you can do with your platform and kind of the podcast is try and make it a bit bite-sized, so it's not as scary. So I think it's exciting to see what can happen.
Well, we're so excited to be working with you, so thank you so much for everything that you are doing to help us.
Very grateful.
Dream team. Thank you, Kat.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Okay.
So we're not going to do our most ADHD thing or a rabbit hole this week, because we need your rabbit hole to be this.
Yes, we need you to get on this. It's really, really important. Please do it. I'm sure, like us, you felt very moved by Kat's story. Please understand that has driven her to what she's doing. And all of our experiences, all of us being disillusioned, let down, and all the rest of it, we can channel that and we can join forces and we can make a difference. So let's do it, peeps.
Yeah, if you've not already done it, link in bio, get it sent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love you. Bye.
ADHD as females, ADHD AF, ADHD as females, the podcast.
If you are finding this podcast helpful and you're in a position to do so, we are asking that you help us by signing up to our Patreon. In pledges starting at just £4 a month, it will give you access to our We Are ADHD AF community forum, in which we are both active members and we all support and learn from each other. You will also get access to behind-the-scenes content, exclusives, offers, blogs, vlogs, the works, everything in the kitchen sink. Your pledge will also mean that we will be able to continue to put out weekly episodes of ADHD as Females, the podcast.
Alternatively, if you would prefer just to make a donation, you can do so by visiting buymeacoffee.com/ADHD as females. We know that our words are helping people in 164 countries and counting.
We really appreciate your support in supporting us to continue supporting the ADHD community.
If you are ADHD AF and you want more ADHD AF, join the We Are ADHD AF community. www.patreon.com/ADHD as females.